Okay, magic makers, I made this list, gosh, over 2 years ago, and I'm finally getting to talk about it today. Adrenal fatigue. And I wanted to talk about this because I feel that for many of us over 40, this is one of the first things that a doctor will say to us. They'll say, oh, it's just adrenal fatigue. And they use the word just adrenal fatigue. And you're like, what? And then you go down the Google trap. So I have brought Miss Maja Miller on here. She's going to help us unpack this adrenal fatigue. I'm doing air quotes here. And her specialty is one, adrenal fatigue, but she also helps busy women transform their bodies from the inside out. And I feel like this adrenal fatigue thing is a sign for people who just need to sit their asses down. So, Maja, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so happy to be on. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, as I'm, was reading through and, as I researched guests to come on the show, that your tagline was like, girl, this is the woman. Because so many of us, and I've had several shows, like and I believe it's a US thing, but, for those of you guys who are listening internationally, we feel like if we are not running with our hair on fire, trying to solve all the world's problems while cooking dinner, then we're not worthy.
That's where it starts from. It all starts from a belief that if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. If no pain, no gain, money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of beliefs that were handed down to us from our very well-intentioned aunties, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and it has set us up to just look at what's happening with autoimmune disease, heart disease, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes. In the US, the way that we are living is not working. It costs us $2.8 trillion annually to manage the health crisis in the United States. And it all stems from these beliefs that we have that are deeply implanted in our subconscious mind. And what a lot of people don't, at the core of everything that I do is a lot of brain science, conscious and subconscious work. And what a lot of people don't understand is that 95% of all of your brain activity happens in the section of the brain that is associated with the subconscious mind, which means if you have a belief that is implanted in the subconscious mind, your subconscious mind goes to the ends of the world, right?
Yeah.
In order to prove those beliefs to be true.
Yes.
Which is why we have such a hard time changing our actions, right? Because who we are being impacts what we're able to do, the actions we're able to take. So it really stems from a belief system that is just maybe I don't want to say it's flawed, because it may have gotten you here, right? And here may have come with a lot of success. Maybe you got the business, the family, the nonprofit, the whatever, but what got you here isn't going to be able to get you there. So
oh my gosh, I take notes after during all my shows, and you just gave, like, there's so many topics we could just talk on those individual topics. But the first place you went was you talked about how our belief system is causing all these autoimmune issues. And for many of us, if we kind of took a step back, I remember this was probably maybe 5 years ago, I was listening to a podcast, and she said, I want you to go back to in the 1970s and pull up just like pictures from family reunion. She's like, just Google family reunion 1970 and look at the pictures of women and how they looked. And you didn't see a lot of people overweight. You didn't hear a lot about type 2 diabetes. You didn't hear a lot of, like, if you had an autoimmune thing, it was something pretty rare.
Very rare, yeah.
And it was like you're one in a zillion, just because your parents got together and they had a chromosome, and that's how you got this disease. Like, that's how it was. It wasn't something we brought on ourselves. And so I find it very interesting that, you talk about that in this world, we're trying to make things work that are being taken out on our bodies because it's clearly not working.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I'm not going to say that there's like a direct, but there's an indirect correlation. So who we are being, right? Whether I am being consistent, persistent, loving, kind, or whether I'm being a jerk to myself, impatient, right? Like who we are being, our identity is the software that makes the hardware work, right? And who we are being impacts what we're able to do, right? So from a health and wellness perspective, delicious food, delicious, healthy food, rest, energy in, energy out, stress reduction, smart supplementation. Those are kind of the main pillars, the main action items. That I kind of found my clinical practice on. And so those are the dials, right? Those are the dials that we turn, the actions that we're able to take. And our actions, right? How the things that we do in our lives, whether we eat healthy food, whether we get lots of sleep, whether we are, having off the chart stress, that determines what we have. And that oftentimes is, do we have a healthy body? Do we have a healthy business? Do we have healthy relationships with our spouse, with our children? And the reality is when you don't feel good in your own body, I mean, this is the vessel on which we sail through this journey we call life, right?
Right.
Well, if you are on some vessel that has, no udder, no navigation system, it's super rusty, holes throughout the hull, you're not going to be sailing, very effectively through life. So that's what I mean by, by our identity, our beliefs essentially causing a lot of these health issues, whether it's autoimmune disease or type 2 diabetes or heart disease. Because the reality is our biography, the actions that we take, the things that we do in our lives, right, impact our biology at a cellular level. And that's what happens with autoimmune disease. It also, the same thing happens with adrenal dysfunction. I call it HPA axis dysfunction. It's your hypothalamus, your pituitary, your adrenals. And so you kind of have to follow it all the way to the back, right? There's a reason why you have an unhealthy body. It's because of the actions that you've taken, and the actions that you've taken are a result of the programming, the belief systems that you have. And so I identify as a healthy person, which means the actions that I'm able to take are that of a healthy person, which means I have a relatively healthy body today, at least compared to, where I was 10, 15 years ago.
Well, it's funny. So and I like that because so many, women get caught up in an identity, be it I'm a mom, I'm an executive, I'm a blah. But I also, want to put the flip side on this. I'm healthy because I have clients who come to me that their ultimate goal is to be healthy, yet the behaviors that they're taking aren't very healthy. They're the behaviors of beating themselves into submission with a hard workout, with little rest and recovery on the backside, with, having this over stressful job, but telling them that these, 10-mile runs are what's keeping them sane.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a part of it is a belief structure. And then also part of it is just a complete lack of education. The way that we live in the United States is really disconnected from like the natural rhythms and cycles of the moon and the sun. And once you start acting outside of nature, then it's all downhill from there. And so, you brought up an interesting point, which is, women who feel that unless you are like completely like slayed after a workout, that it wasn't a beneficial workout, right? Well, when it comes to adrenal dysfunction or HPA axis dysfunction, how you move your body is directly dependent on the stage of adrenal dysfunction that you're in. If you are in a thriving state, which very few people are, then you can do those kinds of workouts, right? But understand that it is a physical stressor on your body. If you are tired and wired or completely kind of crashed in this exhaustive phase, those types of workouts are not recommended. So what you do to move your body and the time of day that you move your body is actually really important. Otherwise, it just is a contributing factor to the adrenal dysfunction. And adrenal dysfunction has, downstream impact on almost everything, because our bodies are connected. We have this amazing human body, and it's a bunch of interconnected systems, which again, Western medicine doesn't treat our bodies that way. You go to a cardiologist for heart issues, you go to endocrinologist for other issues, and so
and they don't talk.
And they don't talk, exactly, right? Even though our systems are talking, regardless of how our Western medical model is set up, our systems are constantly talking to each other. And so, adrenal dysfunction is something that a lot of people probably heard about. Again, I don't like to call it adrenal fatigue, because sometimes it's not just the adrenals. It could be the hypothalamus talking to the pituitary. There could be an issue there. There could be an issue between the pituitary and the adrenals, right? Or there could be an issue in the adrenals. So we call it in the clinical world HPA axis dysfunction, but adrenal dysfunction, I mean, it's easier just to say, right, adrenal fatigue or adrenal dysfunction.
So let's take a step back, because many people listening, they're more familiar with the term adrenal fatigue. So if I am someone who is like, what is this adrenal fatigue? How would I know that I may be experiencing this?
So, and the reason I like to say that is because I like to kind of give like all three of those definitions.
Yeah, no, and I love that.
So that people have kind of, you don't need to be a clinician or, to understand a lot of this stuff, but a lot of times I think it's important to kind of understand like some of the history behind it. And I think we need to take a step back, and we need to have an expanded definition of stress, because stress and your in your autonomic nervous system, which is broken out into two subsystems. It's your sympathetic nervous system, which is kind of fight or flight, or your parasympathetic nervous system, which is kind of rest and digest, right? And so you've got this autonomic nervous system, and we want to be spending the majority of our time resting and digesting. It's not bad to be in a state of fight or flight, right? Because you need stress. Some amounts of stress is good, right? Weightlifting, that's stressful on the body, but it's good, right? And so I think we need to understand, like, what is stress? Well, in the United States, first and foremost, it's the number 6 cause of death. Okay. And it's, any strain, pressure, tension, anxiety, it's an influence that's either internal or external, very important, that causes or leads to malfunction.
Right.
And so the first time that you're stressed, maybe there isn't going to be malfunction. That cycle from sympathetic to parasympathetic and back and forth works very well, right? But what we don't understand is that we are under constant stress today, right?
Yeah.
And so so the way that this kind of works, right? We can like take an example of like the Serengeti desert, or a desert in Africa, right? You've got a bunch of zebras resting and digesting at a water hole, and they're just chilling, right? And then all of a sudden there's a tiger or a lion, and their sympathetic nervous systems are turned on, and what ends up happening is that your adrenals release a cortisol surge. And what is enhanced? Okay. So anything that is responsible for short-term survival is enhanced. Okay. So that means your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your breathing rate goes up. We need lots of blood flow to those big muscle movers, right? So that we can get away from that tiger. We have more energy, we have more strength. But there's a price to pay for this,
Mm.
right? Because if something is enhanced, then something else has to be suppressed. And so the things that are suppressed are digestion. We don't need to process the steak we ate last week if we're in a state of fight or flight, remember?
Right.
Because
Yep.
your body doesn't know the difference between, somebody chasing you and
A
reading a
deadline.
nasty
Right.
text or something on social media or constantly getting pinged at nighttime,
Right.
via emails. There's no differentiation between those things. And so our digestion is suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Your immune system is suppressed. What most people don't know is 70-80% of your immune system is actually in your gut, is
Yep.
in your digestive system. Reproduction. I mean, how many
Mm-hmm.
women do you know that are having a hard time getting and staying pregnant right
Oh
now?
yeah.
Reproduction is suppressed. Growth hormone is suppressed. Tissue repair is suppressed because none of those things matter in the short term, right?
Right.
If you're going to be Simba's snack, then it doesn't matter if you can grow a baby or get rid of
Right.
those cancer
Right. Because
cells or that.
your body's like, you don't need a baby right now. You need to get the hell out of here.
Yes. Yes. So what's happening during this when your sympathetic nervous system is turned on, your body is trying to prioritize anything. Your body is trying to kind of prioritize, right? So anything it doesn't need for immediate survival is placed on the back burner. And so that is kind of what's happening. You have a stressor, and there are three kinds of stress. There are physical stressors, there are biochemical stressors, and there are perceived or emotional stressors.
Right.
And so once you understand that physical stressors like I was a Division I athlete, so constant working out, that was
Yeah.
a physical stressor for me.
Yes.
Fractures, muscle injuries, nerve compressions, repetitive injuries, poor posture, car accidents. Those, for your listeners, right? You've probably had some of those.
Right.
So you've got those physical stressors. And then here are the chemical stressors. I call them kind of biochemical stressors. So eating inflammatory foods, any sort of additives, pesticides and GMOs, alcohol, caffeine, sugar, drugs, poor sleep, lack of exercise, antibiotic use, over-the-counter meds like, NSAIDs, Advil, those kinds of things.
Right.
Those are all chemical stressors, right? Now, all of a sudden, our definition of stress is getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a big balloon, right?
Right. Well, as you're talking, I can hear the conversations I've had with clients, and I can hear the conversations women are having, and they're like, well, I'm different. I need that glass of wine to just get through the day. I need and everything there's a justification for. And as you're, laying it out, I don't think many people see that like stack. It's like a stack.
Yeah.
That stack of papers that like starts with like one piece of paper and then, rapidly grows to like 500 pieces of paper. And
one of the things that I do is an adrenal stress causes inventory, because people don't understand that these things are not natural. Alcohol is more problematic than crack cocaine and methamphetamines in this country. So
for sure.
And I know that it's completely normalized, and it took me a long time to get to a place where I no longer consumed alcohol. And no judgment if you're not there yet, because I wasn't there for a very long time.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand, again, like we just covered physical stressors and chemical stressors, right? Then there's that third category. You're talking about that stack of paper, right? Our emotional stressors, fear, worry, anxiety, excitement, lack of purpose, negative perceptions, partners being a jerk, stressful day at work, the kids have allergies, can't eat. Like all of these things are emotional stressors. So now all of a sudden, when we take a look at your symptoms, which is anxiety, depression, can't poop. A lot of my clients have constipation. They don't want to have sex with their partners, zero libido, complete lack of energy, can barely get through Friday, skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, all of these things, their hair is falling out. All of these, like a brain fog where you're looking at like your sister and you can't remember her name. You're like,
Right.
I clearly know who you are. So you look at those symptoms and you're like, okay, well, let's take a look at your biography, right? So your biology is like all of these symptoms.
Right.
Well, let's look over our shoulders. Well, are you having a glass of wine every single day,
Yeah.
5 to 7 drinks on the weekend? Are you not
Mm-hmm.
sleeping? Are you not moving your body? Your biography becomes your biology. The things that you do in your past, the actions that you take, which are based off of your programming, right?
Right.
Create what you have in your body right now. So, and
Yeah.
look, the reality is like people have to take responsibility for their own lives. If you
Correct.
don't like how much money is in your bank account, if you don't like the way that your body looks, if you don't like the relationships that you have, all you need to do is look inside, because your external world is a direct reflection of your internal world. And if you want to change your external world, you have to be the change. You have to start from the inside out. That is why my protocol is called the inside out protocol, right? We're
Right.
transforming our bodies from the inside out. And, I'm not saying that all of my clients stop drinking
Right.
forever. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is if we take a look at all of our behaviors out there, right, in
Right.
aggregate, can we improve 80% of them, so that if you want to have a, if being a, if drinking wines and collecting wines is like a part of who you are,
Right.
then you can continue to do that, right? So it's not that being healthy looks a particular way for every single person. Everybody is different. But what can we do to, kind of like change the course of the ship in
Right.
general?
Yeah. No, and like that. And so it's like as we kind of like unpack the path we've gone on. So, for many of us, what has been diagnosed as adrenal fatigue, it's more of our bodies aren't getting all the signals we need because there are these three various stressors, be it emotional, be it chemical, or be it physical stressors that are all vying for attention, that our body's like, I don't know which way to turn right now. Because for many people, like if you think about it, is like, if we're going back to Serengeti, there's a lot of tigers coming. And I don't know,
Right.
like, do I go right? Do I go left? Do I just lay here and pray for the best? Like, where do I go? So your body's just kind of like, I don't know how to help you. It's too
Yeah.
much.
Well, I think that's where what you do is just as important as how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
and the order in which you do it. I think that there are a couple of things that you really need to have high level, in order to kind of make these, in order to make these changes in your life. And this is like my formula, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a strategy. So
Yes.
you need to have somebody that understands like what's going on in your body. And for me, I run clinical labs on all of my clients. So whether it's a stool test, blood chemistry, where I analyze blood, whether it's, looking at your hormones through a saliva test or a urine test, mineral levels in the body, which are so critical, through a hair test. And that kind of informs me on like what's going on in your body.
Gotcha.
I'm able to oftentimes explain, this is why I'm going to be able to connect the dots between what the labs are telling me and what your symptoms are. And then
Gotcha.
I'm able to kind of put together these like tailored protocols, which is
Mm.
like, okay, well, what are the systems? So this is the second thing. You need strategy. The second
Right.
thing is you need some systems. What actions do I take to optimize my health without losing my shit, right? Without losing your
Yeah,
sanity. And
exactly.
so you have to understand, okay, what are the levelers? What are the dials that we're turning? What are the actions that we're taking? But if you're doing the right thing in the wrong order, you will
Mm.
not see success. So
Correct.
oftentimes you need the third thing, you need the structure.
Yeah.
So this is the order you need to do things in so that you can finally be successful.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people default to moving your body, right?
Yes.
Exercise.
Always.
Yes,
Because it's
exercise is
easy.
important. Yeah, well, and what kind of exercise, what
Right.
time of day, like, those questions need to be answered. So the third thing is kind of structure, the order in which we need to do them. And then kind of to your, like, there's a lot of different, tigers coming at you. My fourth S is simplicity.
Yeah.
And so have the simplicity you've lacked so that getting healthy becomes easy, because human beings are hardwired to do two things. One is to seek pleasure. Where's the wine? And the other is to avoid pain, right?
Yep.
So if the things that I'm asking you to do are very painful and lack zero pleasure, you are not going to be able to
Nope.
do it long term. And then the last two is you need some support, right? So and then you also need to have some success pretty quickly,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Because we are motivated by seeking pleasure, and success is pleasurable, right?
Right, right.
So those are kind of the six things that you need. And for me, like, I'm allergic to cookie cutter programs. And by the time that people get to me, they've seen on average 12
Yeah.
doctors.
Yeah.
And their doctors have told them everything's normal. This is,
Mhm.
you're just a woman, you're
You're
just getting
crazy. It's in
older.
your head.
Yeah, and so the reality is there's no such thing as like normal diarrhea or normal anxiety or
No.
normal hair loss. If you're experiencing those things, there's a reason why.
Right.
And the labs help me really paint a picture of what's going on in the entire body.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I approach things, right? Because to your point, there's a lot of conflicting information.
Mm.
Somebody might say go keto. Well, for certain clients of mine, if I was to put them on a keto diet, they would have to have their gallbladder removed. And I've had clients like that
Right.
somebody put them on a keto diet and they had to remove their gallbladder. Their bodies weren't meant to eat so much fat and protein. And then
Right.
I've got some people that are like, go vegan, right? Go vegetarian, plant strong. And they've had neurological symptoms that mimic things like multiple sclerosis. And once we pulled them off of that vegetarian diet and gave them like a robust source of like amino acids and saturated fats, all of their neurological symptoms went away.
Right. Right.
So you
Right.
have to understand, like, everybody, your metabolism is as unique as your
Yeah.
fingerprint, right? And maybe when you're 20 years old, okay, you can think about losing weight and 20 pounds, like melt
Exactly.
off of you. But by the time you're 30 or 40 or 50, you're dealing
That
with a
don't
very
happen.
different body and a larger stack of like things that have happened that have
Yeah.
kind of planted themselves in your cells.
Yeah. And, I like that. I like strategy, and, everyone who's listening, and if you're long time listeners, Magic Make, I'm all about the strategy, because people want that instant gratification, right? We're used to 30 days to whatever it is that you're looking for, right?
Yep.
In 30 magical days, all my problems are going to be solved. Where I like where you're, if I were to come to you, you'd be like, I don't know what's going to happen for you in 30 days, but I do know in 30 days, maybe this might feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
But we're just kind of, chipping away at decades probably of what, all of these things that have that stack of paper that has just been building over and over and over against of time.
Which in the first 30 days of clients working with me, I give them 4 things they need to do over the course of 4 weeks. That's it.
Yeah. Well,
That's it. I change their breakfast.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, I change their breakfast. I change how they're moving their bodies. I, have them do a certain amount of light exposure. And they're very easy. Like, the first week, I give you 2 breakfast recipes that are tailored to help heal the adrenals. And it takes 15 minutes for the entire week.
Yeah.
Simple, not a
Mhm.
lot of time, not
Right.
a lot of energy, not a lot of money. So if you can't do one thing in 1 week, right? Now we're stripping it all down. Now it's not a matter of, oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I don't have enough time, right?
Exactly.
There's something else there, and that's why I do that. And
Right.
it's very, and I also, the women that I work with and the men that I work with, oftentimes are busy moms, busy entrepreneurs. They, have, they're directors in Fortune 5 companies. And so, yes, time is an issue, but
Right.
oftentimes it's more of an excuse.
100%.
Or a lack of information. Like
Yeah.
a lot of my clients didn't know that they could spend 10 minutes to make breakfast for the entire week,
Right.
and like be well fueled. So my clients tend to see success within those first, I had a client literally lose, like, not that I really even track weight, like it's not something that's very important to me.
Right.
But she was like, I lost 7 pounds in 1 week. And I'm like, yeah, it's from breakfast. Like,
Right.
Once you strip all this stuff away, it's not that hard, or it
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Right. So, and that's why I feel like, people fall into two camps that, they overthink it. And so like, if you were to say, have one small healthy breakfast, in their mind, they think it has to be this big spread that,
Bacon and eggs and
right,
toast
that
and
Martha Stewart would make in her kitchen. And you're just like, you're going from not eating breakfast into a stressful day, into maybe eating lunch, and then having dinner with a glass of wine, where you're just like, I'm just trying to get you starting to have these little fuel pockets throughout the day.
Yeah.
And so
we start with small change, right?
Yeah.
If going into it, all of a sudden I was like, we're going to completely change every
Right.
single meal that you eat. I'm going to have you do a 6-hour food prep on Sunday.
Exactly.
It's not
Here's
going to
here's
work.
my 500 step morning routine that you're going to have to, they'd be like, I'm out.
Exactly.
And I like that, the small win. And, as we were, talking through, this adrenal part, I think many people also discount that emotional part of it.
Oh, it's huge.
It's, for them, and I could think of a client in particular that, she's going through a job change. Her parents are aging, and, she's not sleeping. And she's like, but Kim, I got to go to the gym. And I was like, girl, like, you have so many other things that are stacking against you right now, that these hard workouts, I'm like, that's why you're not losing the weight. It's like, we have to kind of start to have a time, a time that you can take this nice deep breath, and crushing it at the gym isn't a deep breath for you right now.
Yeah. And that's where I'm able to really use labs to paint a picture of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Because somebody can talk to me until they're blue in the face about how I need to go to the gym. And when I tell them that they have like no DHEA, no testosterone, no estrogen, they're completely crashed out, or, like when I show them like, hey, here's what's going on with your hormones. So you can go ahead and you can choose to continue doing this workout. And like, this is actually what's happening. And I don't have a dog in this fight, right? Like,
Right.
you have to make your own decision for
Correct.
you.
Yeah.
And sometimes the reality is like, sometimes things need to get really bad before we have the motivation to be able to make changes. And oftentimes there's something that we get from how we identify.
It's purely, in this woman's case, it's purely identity,
Yeah. It's like, she feels important. She feels like she's, a boss babe. She feels like there's something that she's getting from the actions that she's taking.
It's stronger. What she's getting out of it is stronger than her body being like, hey, hey.
Yeah. And so that's where a lot of the work that's where a lot of the coaching comes into play. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like you can keep doing this, or you can make a change. It's your life, right? Like, I cannot do the work for you.
You can point out the red flags.
Yeah. So, a lot of times it's like, once you kind of like uncover that thing, and people have this like massive aha moment, because it's not like they know. It's not like they're sitting there consciously being like, oh, like, I feel really productive, or I feel like I'm, moving towards my goals, or, like they're not like consciously thinking these things. Sometimes you need somebody to kind of like take you out of your own environment and point something out.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is all, it's complicated, right? If it was,
it's so, I mean, it's so complicated because it's like, I love social media, but I also hate social media because, I find people like you who I read your stuff and I'm like, it's very, factual. Two, it's very succinct where it's like, these are your symptoms. Here are the things that might be the drivers. And it helps me as someone who I'm like, oh, wow, interesting. It kind of helps me, like you said, shift my perspective of maybe these hard workouts, or maybe my lack of sleep, or maybe I shouldn't be popping Advil like it's candy,
yeah.
and it kind of helps me to, I might not make that immediate phone call, but I'm starting, like the seeds have started to plant.
Yeah, you're planting seeds, and the reality is, not only what kind of workout are you doing, but what time of day
Yeah.
are you doing the workout? And so this may be helpful to some of your listeners. There are 4 adrenal stress levels. One is thriving. I'm not going to cover a lot of that.
Right.
If you're thriving, you don't eat, like, if you're thriving, right?
Right.
But then the first kind of stage of dysfunction is stressed.
Yep.
So you feel edgy. Other people seem like they're going too slow, like they're driving too slow. They can't make your coffee fast enough. Your sleep, it's really difficult to fall asleep. So your mind is going a
Yeah.
lot. Your mental function is kind of fast and scattered. Okay, if you are stressed out, I'm not saying don't move. What I'm saying is that strength training is going to be your go-to movement. Okay.
Right.
And your strength training needs to happen earlier in the day, not
Yeah.
later in the day, because working out actually increases cortisol in your body, and cortisol does not let you sleep.
Right.
Right. Then you've got tired and wired, right? So you feel overwhelmed. Other people seem kind of incompetent. You may be able to, get to sleep, but you have a hard time staying asleep. Your mental function is kind of erratic. And the best type of exercise for you is going to be cardio. And again, you want to do that earlier in the day, not like after work, but before work, or maybe, on your lunch break.
So I'm gonna flip that. So I can see people being like, Maya, that's all well and good, but I can't go to the gym in the morning. Is there, if maybe I could do that on weekends, would that help me out a bit? Because I can totally see the people who are like, I got to get my kids to school, then I have to get to work. The only time I have is that, like, 5:30.
The first movement, I would say that you are damaging your body by doing those kinds of workouts in that stage.
Okay.
So you can continue. Water in excess will kill you.
True.
Oxygen in excess will kill you. Those are 2 things that sun in excess will kill you. But we need all 3 of those things in moderation. So just because something is healthy, right, you've got to do it at the right time, and it's got to be the right thing at the right time. The thing that I tell my clients to start with is a 30-minute walk within 30 to 45 minutes of sunrise every single day, because that helps stabilize hormones. It resets your circadian rhythm. And I think that is a more impactful workout for 95%, 99% of the US population than going to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. You need sun exposure. You need ultraviolet exposure in your eyeballs, right? In your corneas. And so there's no reason. If it's good for you, it's good for your kids. Go on a walk with your kids within an hour of sunrise, right? And I know that there are certain, like, shift workers and those kinds of things. I'm not talking about that, right? But what that means is like you need to change your life around a little bit. Maybe you need to have a conversation with work. Maybe you need to have, right? You need to design the life that is going to keep you alive long term. And there's a
Right.
million excuses, right? They're like a-holes. Everybody's got them. But at the end of the day, this is your life. There is no knight in shining armor. Nobody is coming to save you. It's
True.
just you and the decisions that you have to make. So
Mm.
you can complain and make excuses all day long. Here's your daily dose of tough love. But that's just going to, like, if you keep doing what you've always been doing, you're always going to have what you've always had. You want new results, you got to take new actions.
Mm.
So, I'm in the business of letting people know, like, here's the strategy, here's the actions that you need to take. I can do some coaching around like what's going on, but at the end of the day, if you want to rely, pick your hard, right? It's hard to get the kids
Yeah.
out of bed and have them do a walk with me. You want to know what's also hard? Chemo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I get it. Like, there's a million reasons that you could probably sit there and write down why you don't want to change, or you have to, change. And the reality is, I just walked you through the thriving, the stress, the tired and wired phase. But if you don't take new actions, you will end up in a crashed phase. And
Mm.
this is the worst of the worst. You feel exhausted. Other people to you seem like they're really demanding. Your sleep, even though you're falling asleep and staying asleep, it's unrefreshing. You wake up in the morning as if you slept not at all. Your mental function is very foggy. You're unable to generate ideas. And the best type of exercise for you is neither strength or cardio. It's restorative. It's, a gentle walk. It's, things like a restorative Pilates class,
Mm.
meditation, like sitting outside with your feet on the earth, a restorative yoga class or something like that. I mean, these are the things that you're going to want to default to. And and so not only it's like how are you moving your body, but when are you moving your body? If you're doing a hot yoga class in a
Mm.
crashed state, that's incredibly dangerous for you.
Yeah. And as you're saying these things, you know, I think we also need to shift what we think is a workout. Many people have been programmed for decades that, a workout has to be a specific amount of time and it has to look a certain way. And as you're talking through it, it's like we have to let our bodies dictate what that workout looks like
And, and
versus
and
our
also we
brain.
need to I think we should also acknowledge that working out is a fairly new thing. In
Mm.
the past, we had lives that did not include a lot of sedentary,
Right.
sitting. So I would say working out was something that really kind of started, I would say, in like maybe like the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, or late 60s, maybe the 70s, where we are going for a run, we're doing all these things. But it used to be that the majority of people lived in rural areas. You got up with the sun,
Yep.
you did some chores outside, you went back inside, you had breakfast, right? People weren't eating right away. um and then they're moving throughout the entire day. So we have to understand that, like, how we are living right now, we wake up in a cave, we get
Mm.
into another cave, our cars, drive to another cave, our office, go grocery shopping in another cave, go working out in another cave, the gym,
Mm.
and then we come back home. We have no exposure to the natural course of the sun throughout the sky.
Right.
We're not living our lives in a normal way, and somehow we've been brainwashed to think the way that we're living right now is normal,
Right.
and that's just not the case.
Yeah. No, you're as you go through it, you're right. Cause it's like, back in the day, I farmed my land. And so there was no body pump class. It was, I moved the
Right.
horse, I moved the bale of hay, and I, got the horses out, and I milked a couple cows, and I had to walk to town if I were
Yeah,
to get
it's all functional movement, right?
right.
Like lifting bale hays, those kinds of things. I would say one of the most important things that you can do in developing a healthy routine is getting outside and walking for 20 to 30 minutes every single day within an hour of sunrise, and then also within an hour of sunset.
Hmm.
And I can guarantee you that 99.9% of your listeners don't do that one thing. So for me and my clients, I don't want to talk to them about their yoga, their HIIT classes, their Pilates classes until they can incorporate this one thing that gets their body moving. It resets their circadian rhythm. It allows them to sleep better at night. It programs your body to know, when do we stay awake and when do we start falling asleep. They call midnight because it used to be the middle of the night.
True. But now, I do have a couple clients who are night owls, and, they're not dragging their asses to bed till 1, 2 in the morning.
Yep. And that's almost all of your detoxification happens at night. Your liver is most active at night, and like your certain not only detoxification but kind of a reset or a reprogram of your brain, right? Like just like clearing your brain as well. And so if you aren't going to bed, if you're not willing to make those kinds of changes, I can't even work with you, right? Like it's just like nothing will matter. Like if you can't change that thing, then you are going to continue to get sick. You'll probably have Alzheimer's or dementia at some point in your life. And, these are the consequences of, not being able to make those kinds of decisions earlier on in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the thing that I love about this conversation is that, one, we've laid out a lot of different paths for people. I'm hoping we opened a bunch of loops that people see, like how I'm impacting not only my adrenals, but the bigger picture, my overall health.
Yeah.
We've given them, simple things to try. I always think of everything's an experiment. Nothing we talked about here is something that no one can do, right? There weren't a lot of things that said, okay, so $1,000 for this and $3,000 for this, and you got to go on this 5-day walking retreat. Like, we haven't said any of that. Everything has been very tangible. And if I wanted to, after, pressing stop on this podcast, I can go off and do it right now.
Yep.
So, for everyone listening, I want you to realize, like, it's a decision. Maja has said it over and over and over again. We have to make the decision. I am a recovering stress ball. I was that person who went to 12 umpteen doctors. I was that person who, I was so frustrated with everything that was going on because I was doing all the right things, air quotes. And it was someone like Maja who said to me, girlfriend, you got a lot of shit going on here. We're going to have to unpack it. It's going to take some time. You don't want to hear that. But how badly do you want this gone?
Yeah. And I at a minimum work with people for 8 months. If you're not willing to sign up for 8 months with me, then I don't even, it's unethical for me to really take your money, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I always say, how long have you been living this way?
Yeah.
And it's like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And I'm like, great. Then it will probably take you about half the amount of time, if you're focused, to undo what you just did. I'm not going to say that, there's not going to be, you're not going to have, major improvements in a shorter amount of time than that. But I've been on my wellness journey for 15, 20 years now.
Yeah. And it's, I always say
still
people,
tweaking.
Well, I always say people, it's like a journey where you have so many waypoints along the way, right? There's not this A to B. If I were to go from Maja lives in Austin, I live in Boston. Oh, they rhyme. It could, I have no idea how many miles it is, but maybe I could drive it in a day. But why would I want to? Why would I need to? What if I said, okay, I'm going to drive from Boston to New York? And maybe I stay in New York for a couple of days. Then I drive to Philadelphia. And then I kind of have these little waypoints along the way. And that's what we're talking about. It's like, how do we have these waypoints so that maybe we need to rejig our route? Maybe there's a snowstorm coming and we need to stay a couple extra days.
Yeah.
So,
well, it would take you 29 hours to drive here, and it's almost 2,000 miles if you went a direct route.
yeah.
And you would probably miss some really cool things if you went that direct route, right?
Yeah.
So this journey is not linear. Sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back.
Yep.
But again, if we take a look at, instead of, a 30-day chunk of time, if we take a look at a 12-month chunk of time, if we are, stepping forward more than we are stepping back over the course of those 12 months, then that in and of itself is progress.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm going to end on that because I feel like some of your head is like, wah! We've given you a lot. You might have to listen to this a couple of times, but for sure, follow Maja. Maja, where can they find you on the socials?
I like to be really accessible. You can always email me, Maja@majamiller.com, and it's MAJA@majamiller.com. If you want to talk to me, like a real live conversation, you can go to iopnextlevel.com, and there is a quick little kind of Q&A thing that I do there, just so that I have a little bit of information about you before we hop on a Zoom call, but you can book some time to speak with me. And I'm not big on the socials. I feel like they take away a lot, but you can also find me on Facebook. Almost all of my content is public. So you can find me on Facebook. You can message me there. Messenger pigeons also work. I mean, I'm pretty accessible.
Yeah, I love that. And then Maja, I always ask people this last question. What is one thing that makes you feel magical?
What is one thing that makes me feel magical? I am pregnant right now. And so I'm 29 weeks pregnant. Our little boy is due at the end of February. And every time I feel that little dude move inside of me, I feel magical AF. I'm like, whoa. I'm still wow,
processing.
I'm growing a whole.
You're processing. You're like, there's
being.
something alive in here.
I just made a skeletal system this week. This is wild, and so this process of being pregnant, I've been very in tune with my body, and it just makes the whole process seem magical. There was this probably 2-3 week chunk of time where I was craving certain things, and I have the privilege of understanding that they were high in omega-3s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, brain development is starting this week. There's a lot of brain development happening. So this whole process makes me feel man, being pregnant and growing a human is so incredibly magical. The body is just magical in and of itself. So yeah, magical.
Yeah. Now, is this your first
baby? Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That I was just talking to a potential new client, and she was saying that she got that 3D imaging done. And I am just like that. It just, before you used to get this fuzzy picture and you're like, right there's his eye. And you're like, sure, that's his eye.
Looks like a lima bean. Yeah, no, it's really magical. So yeah, it's a really cool kind of new chapter in my life. And, it's interesting because so many of my clients are moms that had just had awful pregnancies, traumatic births. And I did a lot of work for about 2-3 years before I got pregnant. I essentially was my own client, ran my own labs, saw what I needed to fix, right? Did all the things. And this pregnancy has been so incredibly easy. No morning sickness, and I'm like, oh, this is what a typical pregnancy should feel like.
Right.
And unfortunately, so many women don't have that experience. Yeah. It's sad.
It is sad. Well, Maja, I want to thank you so much for this. This has been really informative. For those, my magic makers, those listening, I hope that one, we opened the loops for you. We started to kind of have you thinking of maybe some of the things I'm experiencing aren't normal. Maybe you are opening the door that maybe I need to get some more labs done. And I will tell you that most general practitioners will not do the labs that Maja is talking about. They will look at you and tell you that you don't need them, or they'll just be like, what? They may have not even heard of some of the labs they're talking about. But the first place I always tell people to go, give me 6 months of you eating healthily, you getting a good night's sleep, start there. And some of your symptoms might go away just with good night's sleep and making focus on your nutrition.
Amen, sister.
Because I'm sure that if you work with Maja and she sees that you're sleeping 3 hours a night, she's going to be like, girlfriend, we need to get
none of the other stuff matters. None of the supplements, none of that other stuff.
Right.
You've got to build on a bedrock foundation, which is what you're talking about. Yeah,
exactly. For sure. So, many of us, there's certain things that we aren't doing right now that we could probably do, so that when we do get to the point where we are taking labs, the labs might show more things that are out of whack. Because I always think about sleep as like your rinse and repeat cycle. It's like I press my dishwasher and for some reason it just stops on certain points and my dishes never get clean. That's how sleep is. If I don't get a good night's sleep, there's so many systems that don't get turned on or don't get turned off because it hasn't had that full cycle. All right, ladies, I've so much to unpack here. Listen to it multiple times. Questions, reach out to Maja, and even if it's to say congratulations on her new nugget. But Maja, thank you so much for spending time with me this afternoon.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. Have a good day.